It's 2 p.m. Central African Time. It's a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Market View. This is your trusted companion for decoding the day's pressing economic as well as business stories with precision and clarity. On today's agenda, are high tendering costs stifling SMEs? It's a big question. The Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency says relief is on the way, with Manager for Capacity Building, Tulile Sifunza, breaking down the initiatives that are aimed at leveling the playing field for small and medium enterprises. The fallout of recent rains on Eswatini's agriculture sector, another big topic. Farms are battered. Namport CEO Begizwe Mazia warns of increased vegetable imports in an already staggering 2 billion emalangeni market. We'll unpack the numbers and what this means for food security in the Kingdom of Eswatini. After our business news, we want to get into our Enterprise Watch segment, a major leap in Eswatini's water infrastructure development. We zoom into the 157 million emalangeni contract that has been signed under the Mkonvo Ngwavuma Water Augmentation Project. Who's going to join us live, Project Coordinator Bafana Matsebula. He wants to shed light on the key deliverables of this critical venture. We want to round everything off by joining Sanele Sibia virtually. He joins us in studio for our market analysis of the day, decoding, of course, the day's market rates and the trends that you need to keep on your radar. Stay tuned as we bring you stories that matter. We dissect the details and connect all the dots. This is Market View, where insights meet impact. My name is Sifiso Umalo. Really happy to be your host. Let's start the show by looking at the business news that make the leading stories today.
sabadala ukuthi njengalokhu sivile sive sikhulume
For our first story, the recent rains have dealt a major blow to the National Agricultural Marketing Board as vegetable farmers have been affected, which will lead to the country importing more this year. They're going to import more vegetables, that is. The Chief Executive Officer, Begizwe Mazia, says they are still collecting data on how many of their farmers have been affected. Eswatini is currently importing around 2 billion emalangeni in vegetables each year, which has been said to be very high.
Of the crop was flowering at the time of the rains, and when it rains so heavily, some of the crops drop the flowers. The flowers are actually the fruits to some of the crops, so it means loss of harvest to the farmers. To some of the farmers, the crop was ready for harvesting, so fields were inaccessible for quite a number of days. So it means the farmers were not able to harvest even the crop that is ready to go to the market. Some of the harvest that was ready no longer requires rain. So if it rains while the produce is already ready for market, it gets damaged, it gets affected. So the quality of the produce gets compromised. It goes without saying that the produce that was projected to be available has been affected and would decline. And these are the very effects that then increases imports of produce into the country. With climate change, the climate is changing intermittently and unexpectedly. In many ways, some of the period where we are expecting rains, there are no rains. Where we are expecting average temperatures, we get excessive temperatures. So this is therefore saying there is a need for farmers to now start adopting the climate smart agricultural practices. We do have financial support that we tailor-made for farmers to finance such technological infrastructural developments. That includes our horticulture revolving fund. Farmers can access that fund to set up their infrastructural developments that include the irrigation infrastructure that I've been talking about, the protected farming, your shade nets, and channels. They can be accessed using the revolving fund that is housed at Eswatini Bank. The Ministry of Agriculture has also recently launched the Agricultural Development Fund. It is also aiming at infrastructural developments in agriculture. So farmers must make use of those initiatives. There is quite a number of other initiatives. I also know the Center for Financial Inclusion also has such finance facilities that assist farmers.
With individual small and medium enterprise holders raising a concern that documents of tendering processes are expensive, the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency says different efforts are being made to ensure preferential treatment for small and medium enterprises. Manager Capacity Building Tulile Sifunza has given a detail on the different initiatives.
Individual small and medium enterprise holders say their wish is to be part of government tenders, but this never materializes sometimes. The business holders who did not want to be identified claim they incur costs of up to 25,000 malangeni through the tendering process. Tulile Sifunza from Espro says they are aware of the plight of small-scale businesses and something is being done.
As a country, there is also the move towards introducing digital procurement, what we call electronic government procurement or EGP, which will then allow the registration of suppliers into one system, and they will also allow the integration now in between all the statutory issuing organizations. So now it will make it easier for suppliers to actually have one system where they can just be able to log in, right, and then make all those arrangements necessary with the other organizations, pay dues or whatever dues that are necessary with those organizations, but it will happen in one portal. So those are things that we are currently working on. Another activity which I can say will play a huge role in assisting tenderers in this aspect is also, I would say, especially SMEs, yes. Another activity that the government has already started working on is actually the review of the legislation. Yes, the review of the legislation that will enable the introduction of the electronic government procurement, as well as it is our wish that now the review will also incorporate areas that will actually speak to they will also support other legislations that the country have that will speak to preferential schemes, right? Now we do have that once we have those preferential schemes that will mostly benefit SMEs. Now once the legislation has been reviewed, we are hoping that there can be now other requirements that will be less stringent, dependent on the size and level of that company in the space. What also has been done, the country is working is also, there is another legislation that has been passed in the past year through the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Trade that has a section that speaks to preferential procurement, of which I'm happy that it's an aspect, an activity, or it's an aspect that is actually moving a bit fast. So that is another one that you can tap on, because if it speaks to preferential procurement, yes, we will be working with the ministry to see how can we help or support the participation of SMEs in public procurement in the country. So for now, I would say that we really do understand the predicament that suppliers are actually facing in terms of when it comes to preparation of tenders. And then we have also recently issued a standard bidding documents. Now with the standard bidding document, because as we have said that the preparation of tenders is a bit costly, we do understand that some procuring entities also charge for their tenders. We are in constant engagement with our procuring entities to say, can they at least get to a point where they need to charge, where it's actually there is a justification for them to charge for the tender, because now the issuance of the standard bidding documents have simplified the process of preparing a tender document, which now will assist procuring entities. I would say incur less or no cost in preparing their tenders. In return, it also becomes less costly for the suppliers.
The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade has done its part to ensure that small-scale businesses get a share in big projects through the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act. The act is designed to ensure that business opportunities are reserved for local entrepreneurs, particularly in the government procurement space. For Market View, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
That is how we round up our business news. Let's go for a net break. We return shortly with our Enterprise Watch segment.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
You're still watching Market View, the Thursday edition. Thank you for staying with us. The Eswatini Water and Agriculture Development Enterprise, known as EWADE, signed a 157 million emalangeni contract with Isipetu Lesikon, the consultant joint venture in the implementation of the Mkonvo Ngwavuma Water Augmentation Project. We're now joined by Bafana Matsebula, who is the project coordinator. He's going to give us the exact deliverables of the contract. Welcome to the program, Mkolo. A very good afternoon to you. Let's perhaps start by providing a clear breakdown of the scope of work for the 157 million emalangeni Mkonvo Ngwavuma contract. What are the key objectives, the deliverables, and the specific outcomes that are expected from this agreement?
Thank you very much, and greetings to our viewers. The contract is for supervision services. Specifically, we require technical support to deliver our mandate. You will know that we have a 2-diameter pipeline. This is a complex project, a 2-diameter pipeline spanning over 37 kilometers from the dam here in Bageni, transferring water to St. Philip's, Qontwana, Mqatuvane, all along the way, Bomaloma, the areas to be irrigated. So we have a series of contracts, 6 contracts to be exact, to deliver this project. We have one for the main conveyance pipeline. We are currently advertising for the contractors to build that, and we are mindful to start the actual construction of the pipeline between May and June this year. We also have what we call a secondary distribution system, which is now earmarked to take water from the pipeline and distribute it to the actual areas to be irrigated to the farm edge. And then we have the actual installation of the irrigation system, whether they be your center pivots or sprinkler systems, for the area to be irrigated. Again, this is some 4,600 hectares. What EWADE has done this time around, after hearing the cry from the industry, we have broken this into smaller contracts to enable local participators to play a role. It was easier to do this in this case because it was difficult to break the dam into small segments. So that's why we have one large contract over there. But in this case, we are lucky. We will have a minimum of 3 irrigation contracts. And then we also have contracts for the secondary distribution system. So that's what the consultants are here to deliver. They will help us in the first place to be able to select competent bidders to do the work, because we don't want to run the risk of having incompetent contractors to be employed. We also want to be sure that once the contractors are employed to do the work, work is done according to the design, to the specifications. One of the key features of this project is to deliver water by gravity, for example. We're not able to achieve that over the past projects that we've worked on. There is a lot of pumping, so there's a lot of cost of electricity. So this time we actually want to deliver water by gravity so that none of the farmers are required to pay electricity. So that is expected to improve the profitability of whatever is being grown, because electricity is a huge, huge cost driver for irrigation systems. So I think I can end there for now and take more
Yeah, and I
questions.
think right. Before we get into the timeline of for the execution of these projects, two things that I take note of that you have mentioned. The cost of electricity, which becomes very exorbitant. It makes me wonder if these funds are enough to cover all of those expenses. And of course, I agree with you fully on making sure that you do not work or hire incompetent workers. We have seen recently some stories whereby some work that was done showed signs of incompetence a couple of years later. But I do just want a simple yes or no answer. Is this fund looking feasible in terms of being enough for this project?
It is enough. And again, we are eliminating electricity. It will not be part of the equation because the water is already coming pressurized via the pipeline, so it will deliver enough pressure at farm
Okay.
edge, so there will be no pumping.
And what is the timeline for the execution for the project? Could you outline maybe the start date, the major milestone, as well as the anticipated completion date?
Everything is driven by the completion of the dam. The dam will be completed in 2028 April. So we are timing everything, including the main pipeline and irrigation system, to be completed at the same time. Obviously, when that completes 2028, it will be during the start of the dry season. But we expect that during 2029, the dam will start filling up and we can start irrigating so that we can start seeing some harvest by 2030.
Yeah, we also look at the projected economic impact of this project on Eswatini's economy, of course, that comes in many streams, but more importantly, the involvement of indigenous, or let's say local companies, during the process of this, development.
As I mentioned, this project has been segmented into 6 contracts to make specifically sure that all the contractors that are in the country can participate. So we expect that
Is there a quota, though? Is there a quota?
There is no quota.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody should be able to participate this time. We believe that, except for the main conveyance pipeline, which really requires experience laying 2-diameter pipelines, all the other contracts are within reach. All the contractors, they can be done locally if all the contractors are serious enough and they want to participate. And we'll actually be lucky if that happens, because they will be able to then utilize even people in the community, like small contractors. Part of the challenge that we had with our bigger contractors is that they were not really able to effectively integrate with the small contractors locally. So we're looking forward to this second phase where we'll have local contractors who understand the local language and can work with the locals.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the big conversation when there are, jobs of this nature is job creation, especially, to infrastructure development, the ripple effects that are expected therein. And, the big questions then become, how will the local economy benefit in both the short term and the long term? It looks like a very promising project that could, benefit a lot of people.
We expect that during the construction itself, anywhere between 500 and 1,000 workers will be employed throughout the pipeline, as they will not be transporting people for more than 10, 15 kilometers. So there will be direct employment, but immediately after this project is finished, the farming is supposed to start. And you have seen Spokane, and you can see how the landscape can change. The service industries, the banks, service providers, accommodation, so even hotels and everything that is happening in Spokane, we expect will happen in this part of the country. The beautiful thing is that the government has had the foresight and they want to set up an eco-city so that the development is actually controlled and easy for people to buy properties and things like that. I think we're looking forward to that being implemented.
In the interest of time, perhaps the shortest answer that you can give me for, some of the measures that are in place to ensure the fair treatment and the welfare of employees that are engaged by external contractors.
It's the contract. All our contracts are FIDIC, and it's got very clear guidelines about how employees are supposed to be treated, and that shall be vigorously enforced without mercy.
Mr. Matsebula, thank you so much for your time. This has been Bafana Matsebula, the project coordinator for the project that we have just engaged in conversation in the Mkonvo Ngwavuma Water Augmentation Project. That is how we cap off our Enterprise Watch segment. We go for a net break. Sanel Lesbia is on standby to give us his decoding of the market rates of the day.
sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu sifile sive sitikhulume
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
Let's turn our focus now to the numbers shaping the markets today with Sanele Lesbia, who joins us virtually today. Sanele, very good afternoon to you. Perhaps give us an overview of everything that is happening with regards to the market rates of the day. We are seeing the US and European markets. There's a bit of optimism there. And, I want to understand what it is that is driving that optimism and perhaps how it compares to more subdued gains in Europe.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Good afternoon to the viewer. So what we're seeing here is, markets are climbing, on the background of those beautiful news coming out of the US showing that, inflation is subsiding. So what that has actually done through the market has actually, recultivated this optimism that we are going to get at least one last rate cut before we start seeing the impacts of a Trump administration and their policies as we go into, say, January 20, and then we start rethinking what the market direction should be post January 20. So across the US markets, it's quite an upbeat move with the Dow Jones Industrial Average gaining around some 7,000 mark, some 700 points. The Nasdaq Composite gaining some 466 points, and with the S&P 500 gaining 107 points. So markets are just, recouping those losses they had made in the past few days. And then again, in Europe, the same sentiment still reverberates in terms of what is happening in the US. And what we're seeing as well is also, in as much as in countries like London, in as much as inflation is still above that 2% target, but what we are seeing is the fact that inflation is actually coming down. So that's what the markets are somehow trying to show, with the FTSE 100, climbing some 70 points back to the 8,300 mark, and with the DAX in Germany staying relatively at the same 20,000 mark, and with the CAC 40 showing some improvements there back to the 7,600 mark. That's purely because we've seen Macron meeting with his prime minister, and just shows that there's a bit of stability in France, even amongst the turmoil. And we've seen how the French government is handling that entire strike around the farm workers. Moving into Japan again, into the Asian markets, again, the mood is somewhat of one that is a bit optimistic. Again, it's still the sentiments of the Federal Reserve Bank interest rate cut that we are expecting to come through tomorrow on January 17 meeting. So that is, just supporting markets, and we do anticipate that increase in demand, and we do anticipate that at least within the first quarter, even post January 20, there will be a bit of optimism in the markets, and there will be a bit of what the markets expected in terms of those gains, and in terms of what the interest rate path ought to be. But now it remains to be seen whether we are going to get back to interest rate neutrality with the new Trump administration. But right now, the markets are eating those short-term expectations up until the next Federal Reserve Bank meeting, which will come sometime in February. Then again, in Johannesburg, we're seeing that very same mood, with investors also showing some positive acceptance to the news that US inflation is actually going down. And what we are seeing again is the fact that we should expect yet another rate cut in the region, both in South Africa and in Eswatini, following the fact that we won't be far apart. The deviation between the US and South Africa and Eswatini will not be that far apart, and that's purely due to those interest rate differentials. So we still have scope to lower the interest rate without seeing much capital flight. And then coming into the domestic stock market, we've seen some movements today, though it's actually in the downward direction, with the all-share index, the Eswatini all-share index moving to 489.12, which is just a negative 0.54 losses. So we've seen a bit of sales in the domestic stock market. And then when we move into our commodities, you can see that gold is still holding strong. That's actually supported by that interest rate cut that is coming, and at the same time, there's still a bit of uncertainty, though we do know that there is that ceasefire deal in Gaza that is going to come into effect on Saturday or Sunday. It's coming into effect on Sunday, so we are expecting markets to also stabilize around that. And that is actually quite evident in terms of the oil prices there, because there is hope that this ceasefire deal is actually going to bring a bit of stability into the region, and probably usher in a new peaceful era within the Middle East. So we should actually, in the next few days, start seeing the overall Brent crude price coming down to that 70 mark. And the demand in Europe, because it's winter, there is actually going to hold it up at that 79, the upper 70s mark. That's those which what we should expect. And then what we're seeing again in terms of the currencies is a bit of losses against the major currencies, but it's still at a very strong position. I think that is what one would look forward to. But one of the factors contributing to that, Mr. Ngumalo, is the fact that we are seeing the 10-year bond yield, the 10-year Treasury bond yield in the US also climbing up, because, bond watchers are just watching to see in terms of the uncertainty that a Trump presidency presents, and also in terms of the truce in the Middle East, and seeing if it's going to hold or not. Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo.
Sanele, thank you for those insights. And that's it for the day here on Market View, where numbers meet meaning and insight drives action. Join us again next time as we continue to make sense of the markets and empower your next move. Have a very good afternoon. Bye-bye.
To pick up pace in recent weeks, the return of Donald Trump. The US president